My name is Travis Ricks. I'm the director of the programs department at Challenge Athletes Foundation, and I've been working at the organization over 12 years, going on my 13th year now. I started way back in 2003 when I was a brand new amputee, and someone introduced me to the organization, and I was able to start volunteering. Fell in love with what we do, and decided that I was going to continue to help volunteer. And then one day I was offered a job at the front desk, and I never left. So now I have the pleasure of running our programs department and working with some amazing people. I like to tell everybody that we're the face of the organization. You know, we are also, I think, part of the heart of the organization. We've got some amazing people that work in Challenge Athletes Foundation, and you're going to meet one of them tonight. This is our third installment of our CAF Fireside Chats. If you haven't been able to see the previous ones, we did one on our grants program, and we also did one on our Operation Rebound program, and those will be up on our website soon for everybody to be able to rewatch. Great time being able to talk to Jamie Jarvis, who manages our grant program. She gave a lot of amazing insight on what we do with our grants, and this 2020 year, some of the things we did to change that, as well as what we're looking forward to in 2021 with all the impact that COVID has had. So make sure you check that out. And if you get a chance and you haven't seen our senior manager of Operation Rebound, Nico Marcolongo, you will absolutely enjoy his fireside chat with Colonel Dave Rizal and retired Major Anthony Smith. They're a great group of guys. It's always amazing when you get them together, and being able to see and hear from the people that really started the program for our wounded veterans and our first responders. It's really awesome. So go check that out. Tonight, we're going to talk about high school adaptive sports, and I am going to do that with two amazing ladies. I am going to see if I can pop them up on the screen right here for everybody and let everyone see them. So if you give me 1 second, we'll go ahead and do that. All right. So I think everybody should be up on the screen, but I'm going to ask the ladies to unmute themselves just real quick so they can say hi. First person I'd like to introduce is our programs coordinator, Eva Kristof. She has ran this program from the beginning of its inception and did an amazing job this last year. And we'll get a little bit more into that. But Eva, go ahead and say hello to everybody.
Hi, everyone. You want me to give my whole bio right now, Travis?
No, we're going to get on that. I'm going to let Gracie say hello as well. We got Gracie Lockwood with us, who is a high school adaptive athlete, who has also, helped out with getting other athletes involved in the high school realm. And she's been a huge help here in San Diego with us in our program. So say hi, Gracie.
Hi.
Awesome. All right. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead. Now I'm going to introduce you. I would like to share, or have Eva go ahead and share a little bit about herself, not only her experience with the high school adaptive sports program, but kind of some of her life experiences that brought her into the Challenge Athletes Foundation. She is one of our newest employees, but she's had a huge impact since she's been there. So I'd love to hear about your journey to CAF, what you've been doing in your first year at CAF, and obviously your role with the high school adaptive sports program.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, Travis, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited. For those of you who I've not had the chance to meet, my name's Eva. I am currently the programs coordinator here at CAF, and I've been with CAF for about a year and a half now. I originally got involved in adaptive sports because my cousin has CP, and I had the opportunity to watch him grow up and play a ton of different sports recreationally. And so that led me to be interested in a career path within this. So I attended the State University of New York, of Cortland in upstate New York, and I managed in sport management while playing collegiate hockey, which was a really fun opportunity. And I also got a concentration in event and facility management. After college wrapped up, I graduated and I ended up at CAF. Some of the experiences that I had within college, I worked for the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is a rehabilitation hospital out in Chicago. And then I was also with US Para for about 9 months my senior year of college, which really instilled that this is what I wanted to do as a career path. So a week after graduation, packed my bags and moved down to San Diego to work for CAF, and I've had an absolute blast ever since. So my primary role here at CAF is the high school adaptive sports program. And I'm super excited to talk about it today because it's a lot of information that I'm going to throw at you guys, but it's all really important if you want to get involved and be an adaptive high school athlete.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to come. And I think really one of the things I want to point out here is we have done this program in California, but we are, really some of this information is definitely pertinent to anybody across the United States that wants to join their high school adaptive sports or the high school sports programming. And if they don't have adaptive sports for you, there's some other avenues. We may or may not touch on that tonight, but definitely this is good. I see a lot of people from the East Coast, which is great, on here tonight. Now, one of our other guests, because we're so proud of the accomplishments that she's had, Eva's going to go ahead and introduce Gracie and talk a little bit about kind of her bio and her accomplishments. And then what we're going to do at the end is grill Gracie, question Gracie on a few things about her involvement with high school sports. So Eva, go ahead and do your introduction and let everybody know about this amazing young woman we have with us tonight.
Yeah, so I have the pleasure of introducing Gracie Lockwood, who is mature beyond her years. I thought Gracie, when I first met her, was like in college or beyond because of how well she carries herself. But Gracie has been a part of the CAF family for a really long time now. She's been a fantastic addition to one of our athletes here in San Diego. A little bit about Gracie: she began swimming recreationally at the age of 10 prior to learning that she was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Now Gracie is a high school adaptive swimmer at the San Diego Met, and she has had a slew of accomplishments throughout her career, and she is a senior this year. So Gracie became the San Diego section Paralympic record holder and the state record holder in the 50 and 100 free, as well as she's ranked top 10 for US Para Swim and is a USA Scholastic All-American. So, as a senior in high school, just absolutely fantastic young lady here. She has accomplished so much, and she's not done. She recently verbally committed to UC Santa Barbara to be the first para swimmer on their swim team. And ultimately, Gracie hopes to make the 2024 Paralympic Games, and as well as create a para heat at the Collegiate Conference Championship once she goes off to college. So Gracie, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're super excited to hear from you.
So Gracie, first of all, congratulations on UC Santa Barbara. That's awesome. I know you're going to have an amazing time up there. They're lucky to have you. We're going to be sad to have you leave San Diego and all the stuff we've accomplished, but we know we'll be following you throughout all the things you do in college. But we've got some time for that. She's got one more year of school to go, so we'll let her be a senior first. I am going to have you say a few words, but I do want to point out Gracie has been a huge part in connecting adaptive sports to the high school realm, because she took a job as an intern at the San Diego section CIF office, and it was really helpful to have her involved in that way, because she was able to connect us with the office, get involved in some of the things that we were doing, and really just be kind of that conduit between high school sports and getting more adaptive athletes involved. So we'll question her on her time with CIF a little bit later, but would love Gracie just to say hello, maybe say a few words about herself. And
first of all, CAF is they're a family. When I was diagnosed at 10, it was a big shock for me and my family, and I think about 3 weeks later I went to a CAF clinic, and it was extremely overwhelming. I think I hung out with my mom, and then I think it was it could have been Travis. I was young, but someone came running over and they're like, "Hey, you should come with us. We're gonna go do this activity. How about you stay with me?" And I've pretty much stayed with them the whole time. So much to the point now where I'm like, okay, guys, I have to go. I have other assignments that I have to do. But wouldn't trade it for the world. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to talk with you all and about what we've done. You know, CAF is such a multifaceted organization, and they do so much kind and good things all around the world. And it's just been so cool to see them emerge in the school setting and to feel their love and support in schools all around California, but especially here in San Diego. So I appreciate that. And I'm really excited to talk to you all about what we've done and what we can do for others around the country.
Awesome. Thanks, Gracie. Appreciate it. Eva, thanks for the introduction. We are going to put Gracie on hold, put her on the little back burner for a minute, and we're going to talk to Eva about some of the things that we've done with this high school program, and then we're going to come back and speak to Gracie at the end, and we'll cap it off with her and her journey and all the things she's done. So I'm going to switch views now over to active speaker. There we go. And I'm going to have a little one-on-one with Eva. And the first question I've got for her actually is just to ask her what the high school adaptive sports program is. It's a high school adaptive sports program that CAF was able to put on because of the gracious support from the Kenneth Whalen Family Foundation. And would love, Eva, for you just to give a general 101 on what the program is.
Yeah, of course. So big shout out to the Kenneth Whalen Family Foundation, as well as LA84 and Pitch Johnson for helping to support us in this initiative. Wouldn't have been possible without those three groups. But the High School Adaptive Sports Program is CAF's newest initiative, and I have the fantastic opportunity to run it alongside my supervisor, Patrick Lawrence. And this was kind of a creation between Patrick and Travis before I came on with CAF. And they wanted to work on creating more awareness and opportunities surrounding high school adaptive sports. And we want to give athletes the opportunity to compete alongside with their able-bodied classmates. So that's kind of where this program came from a bit. So our current focus of this program is adaptive track and field. But as more schools embrace parasport and more school districts start to grow a bit more in those areas, our future goals with this program would be to create additional resources and opportunities in a variety of other sports, such as swimming and wheelchair tennis. So what we've done with this program so far is that we've worked with both middle school and high school students with things such as loaner equipment, coaching, training, grant opportunities, and resources. One thing that we did this last year, January of 2020, was we held our first official annual adaptive track and field preseason training program. And so we held that in Northern California and Southern California, and that gave those student athletes the opportunity to come out, learn the sport of track and field from our experts, and spend about six consecutive Sundays with us, perfecting their skills in order to prepare them for their high school track and field team. And this was open to both middle school and high school athletes. So the middle schoolers were learning the sport for the first time, and the high schoolers were kind of prepping to go off and compete with their able-bodied classmates in high school. But it was a huge success for our first year. We had a great number of kids come out, and most of those kids ended up moving forward to compete for their high school. Unfortunately, with COVID, that didn't quite play out as we hoped for it to, but a lot of them have stayed really active throughout this quarantining period, and we're hopeful to see them again this next year. But I know I'm talking a little bit about California now. If you're not in the state of California, this program can still help you out. We have worked really hard on creating some additional resources for both adaptive track and field as well as high school students. So we've got adaptive track and field training videos online that will help walk a coach, an athlete, or a parent through the basics that you need to know for wheelchair racing, seated throwing, ambulatory sprints, and throws. And we also are currently working on a variety of different resource documents that will help an athlete understand how to get to that high school level, how to join their high school team, as well as the coach on how to work with an adaptive athlete. So super excited about those resources that we're working on right now. Those are soon to come. But the program so far has been fantastic, and I'm glad that I've been able to spend a bit of this quarantining period working on these resources so we can help expand it outside of California as well.
That's awesome. I actually just dropped into the chat the link to the High School Adaptive Sports page where you can find those resources that Eva was referring to. So obviously the High School Adaptive Sports movement didn't just pop out of thin air. Would love to get a little bit more of the history behind the initiative and how it started.
Yeah, of course. So I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson here. This started back in 2013 when the Office of Civil Rights passed something called the Dear Colleague Letter. And that explains the existing obligations of the Rehabilitation Act, which says that federally funded school districts are required to provide students with physical disabilities opportunities in extracurricular activities and sports. So it's basically saying you have the right to participate regardless of your ability level. A school district doesn't have the right to disclude an athlete based on their ability level, and they have to look into reasonable modifications for an athlete in order to help them participate to compete. So that's kind of where this came from, kind of a dry history lesson here, but it's important to know because it's important to understand where this kind of stemmed from. And so fast forward to now, and you're looking at a lot of different states that are starting to adopt this parasport movement. And since CAF is based in California, that's kind of where we've started as well. So where this all formed within California is that our state association, the organization that runs all high school sports within the state of California, they started to create adaptive specific opportunities within track and field and swimming. So that meant that if an adaptive athlete joined their team, there would be adaptive specific divisions at the higher level, such as the state championship. And it was awesome. It was so cool that they had the opportunity to create something like this, but there was an awareness and a participation number missing a little bit there. And so that's where CAF has kind of come in and helped grow this high school sports program to create more opportunities for kids in California, as well as create more resources for those outside of California that are looking to do the same thing.
That's great. I know you talked a little bit about, the fact that there's more than just track and field in high school sports, but, if somebody wanted to join, what is that the only thing that they can do? Is there other opportunities that they can do? Touch a little bit on that.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm talking about track and field and swimming a lot is because a lot of the states in our country have adaptive specific opportunities for those sports. So for example, if a student were to be on their swim team and make it to the state level, they would potentially be competing against other adaptive athletes. That's not necessarily going to be the same if you're an adaptive athlete joining your basketball team. Odds are you're probably not going to see many other adaptive athletes throughout the year. So that's kind of why we've pushed swimming and adaptive track and field. But that doesn't mean that those are your only options as a high school student. Those aren't everyone's forte. You might want to do something else. So under all of the legislative rules, schools are required to provide opportunities to students, assuming that they can make the team on their own, as well as they don't change the fundamental nature of the game. And it's, of course, safety. So assuring that everyone is safe if that adaptive athlete were to participate. So for example, if you were, to use Travis as an example, if you were an amputee and you wanted to wrestle, as Travis did, he has the right to wrestle for his high school team as an amputee, but there's not going to be any adaptive specific events for him to compete in. So likely he would be competing against able-bodied athletes his whole high school career. That doesn't mean it's not a bad thing. It makes you grow as an athlete either way. So if you do not want to do track and field or swimming, there are 100% other options for you. You just got to work with your school to see what works for you best.
That's great. That's a lot of really awesome information. I think one of the things that we see, I can tell from this call, or the video here, we have quite a few athletes that are going to be transitioning into a high school in the next couple of years. And I'm sure that they have some questions about, obviously, if they wanted to join their high school team, how would they go about that?
Well, first of all, I was looking at the chat. I love that there's some middle schoolers in this because that means you guys are ahead of the curve. You're prepping for this. You guys are learning about this topic before you even get to high school. So that is really awesome. So CAF has kind of created this 5-step process of joining your high school sports team, and this can apply to any sports team that you're looking at. So our step 1 is understanding the history. It might be a little dry, but understanding the Dear Colleague letter and knowing your rights as a high school adaptive athlete. Step 2 is researching your high school state association. And so backing up a little bit, every state has something called a high school state association that runs all of the high school sports within that location. And so the reason why this is so important is because every high school state association operates a little bit differently. There are different rules and regulations for an adaptive athlete depending on the state that you live in. So getting in contact with your state high school association, talking to someone, learning what opportunities you have within your state is super, super important. Step number 3 is reaching out to your athletic director, your coach, or a school advocate, like a counselor or someone in the health office, anyone that can kind of help you take that step to actually joining your team. Tell them that you want to participate. And so this step might look a little bit different for every high school athlete, depending on where you're attending school. Because some schools will embrace an adaptive athlete and make sure that they have all the opportunities that every other student does at that school. And some schools, it's a little bit harder. And sometimes that happens because a school isn't as educated and they don't understand your rights as an adaptive athlete. And so this is where you want to learn how to advocate for yourself, bring up all of the Dear Colleague letter stuff, and share what your rights are. And then if you're still getting issues, please reach out to CAF. This is huge. Like, we have resources and people that can reach out to your school administration, your coaches, and talk to them. And say your coach brings you on in and it's a great thing, but your coach doesn't know how to modify workouts for you, or he's not sure how to work with an adaptive athlete. Same thing. Please reach out to us. We can connect you with the right people that can help that coach with that learning curve. So it's super important to remember that you always have CAF on your side with this step, because things can get difficult sometimes. But once you cross that barrier, you are a part of a team, and it's a great, great experience. Step number 4 is inquiring about equipment. So that's, of course, depending if you need equipment for a sport like track and field. If you need a wheelchair racer or a seated throwing chair, ask your school administration if they have any funds set aside to purchase any adaptive equipment. They sometimes do, and they sometimes don't. If they don't, you can always reach out to your local adaptive sports club to see if they have loaner equipment, or you can apply for a CAF grant. And then step 5 is get moving. Join your team, have fun, work hard. And a big part of this step is to keep communication lines with your coach open. Make sure that they understand your wants, your needs, your goals for that season and beyond. You know, it's important for them to understand you as an athlete and understand what may need to be modified and what may not need to be modified. And so keeping those lines of communication with your coach is super important. Having that relationship with them will help give you a more positive experience as a high school athlete.
That's great. I love the 5 steps. I hopefully, if I can't do it, maybe Eva can do this before Gracie and I are done chatting. But I'd love to post those 5 steps into the chat so everybody can see them. And then, you know, a lot of this information obviously could seem overwhelming on a webinar. You may not be able to remember everything that's said, but there's some great stuff. And before I move on to asking Gracie some questions, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball because we didn't really talk about this, but Eva's working on some amazing stuff right now. I'd love for you just to touch a little bit on some other things that we're creating documents wise to work with groups like NFHS, and to be able to help other people through like the pipeline and pathway to sport. So can you just give us a little update on some of those things and obviously where they can find them?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of documents in the works right now. So for one, those 5 steps that I just gave you, that will be in document form, as well as giving you a variety of links to help you kind of navigate through that. So when I say like find your state high school association, there's going to be a link that's going to help you find that. So that's one document in the works. We also have a competition expectations document in the works that is going to help an athlete understand what their first day of competition may need to look like. So what needs to be done before? Does your coach need to speak to the meet director about you participating? Does there need to be anything brought, such as if you're a seated thrower, should you be prepping to transport, a throwing chair and a platform? Who needs to know about it? And so that document is going to help an athlete as well as a coach really understand what those steps need to be taken in order for someone to have a seamless experience at their first meet and beyond, of course. And then one other thing that we are working on is I'm actually hearing the voices of a lot of athletes for this one is a tip list for a new high school coach that has never worked with an adaptive athlete before. So it's going to be a series of tips that is going to come from our athletes that is going to say, what do I need to know when working with an adaptive athlete? So like one of the top tips that I've received so far is learning about the athlete's disability and understanding it a little bit better so you can work with them. Let's see, what else do we have? I think, and then we have, and then we're creating a lot more training videos within track and field. So we're working with a variety of coaches with that, and we're going to expand on our track and field video resources, as well as some strength and conditioning resources, which can be used over all sports. I think I got everything. Was that it, Patrick or Travis?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think one of the great things that is available, especially if somebody's trying to kind of educate their coaches or their administration on what they're wanting to accomplish by joining the team, is some of the videos that we've already created. We put together some amazing videos, and I know you've touched on it already, but there's some amazing videos out there that have some of the top people in adaptive sports, track and field, like Kathy Sellers, who used to run the high school or the track and field program for U.S. Paralympics, and we've had other people that have been involved that are phenomenal coaches that know a lot about just doing the sports and what it takes to get an adaptive athlete. And some of these things are great for sharing with parents who are maybe a little apprehensive about having their child join, or coaches or administrators that are like, oh, we've never really had somebody with a disability join. We don't know what to do. And I think the videos are great for everybody to go check out, for their own personal education, as well as being able to educate others if you are trying to join your high school adaptive sports program. So with that, Eva, thank you. I think we'll bring you on in the end. I think we have at least one question that I will throw out, but I'm going to turn it over now, and we're going to bring Gracie on the screen. Thank you so much for all the information that you gave. We really do appreciate all the hard work that you're doing for the program, be able to make sure that more and more high school aged and younger kids with disabilities have access to their sports teams. I personally know that the experience of being on a sports team during my high school years was so influential for me to be able to just grow as a person, grow as part of my community, and have just such confidence afterwards, that I think that the opportunities to be given to people with physical disabilities, it needs to be there for those same reasons. And I'm excited about the work that you're doing. And I think that you're making huge strides in the movement. And I think that we have so much more to come. And so thank you again for everything. And we'll bring you back on. But now I want to talk to Gracie. Gracie, would love to really just have you share with everybody about how you found the opportunity to participate on your high school swim team and kind of what that journey was like.
Okay, cool. All right. Hello, everyone. So I actually was just talking to my mom earlier today because I could not remember how I figured it out, and that's a problem. That's why we have Eva and all of the things that CAF is doing, is because I was like, I think that there was like one lucky chance where, because I do train for Team USA, I'm trying to make it. I was at a certain meet in California, I think in like 7th grade, and the coach was like mentioned that, they were like, I got an email from someone in California, and they were like, we're trying to start a Paralympic program for swimming. How do I do that? What even is the Paralympics? What does it look like to try to have high schoolers join the Paralympics? And I think that it just so happened my mom was like in the area when this email happened, and she was like, oh my gosh, Lainey, my mom, do you know what this is? Do you know what CIF is? And I think my mom like filed it away for later, and she ended up just like looking it up in San Diego, went on like an obscure website, found the person she needed to contact, and the rest is history, kind of, because in this process it's never really been easy. It, you know, definitely I think high school is already a very emotional time, teenagers trying to grow up. On top of it, you know, playing a sport and being competitive, that can be a difficult thing, and then having a disability and going to a public high school with 2,000 other kids is always difficult. So for me, when my mom first mentioned it to me to go do high school swim, I was very excited because I wanted to be a part of a team. Swimming is an individual sport, same as track and field, and being a part of a team and competing as a team, earning points for a team, having rivalries with other schools was something I'd never had as a club athlete. So to have that as a high school, I was very excited about it. And the idea of doing para athletics was both like thrilling, and I'm going to mention it was also scary because I would be the only one in San Diego, and I was the only one in San Diego who was doing it. And that was terrifying because I was very introverted. I'm now extremely extroverted, but it was very scary to me to go and put myself out there. So I think my mom first mentioned it. I was like, okay, I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm just going to give it a chance. And that was about, I think that about answers your question there, Travis, but it was, once again, because I can't remember necessarily how I did it, I was like, this needs to change. People need to understand and know and have easy access. How do I join my high school sports team?
That's great. Not everybody has kind of that opportunity put in front of them like that. So it was very lucky of you to be able to do that. And obviously, you know, being the only one in a large county like San Diego County is probably very daunting. So there's obviously, you know, as an athlete who likes to compete, having more and more people in the adaptive divisions is probably something that you want to see because it creates competition and it grows the sport. So you are, in a sense, a trailblazer for this area. So we appreciate you stepping out, doing that. I got a question about, my next question is about what kind of support did you receive from the team and the coaches on the team?
Right. So I was kind of starting there when I was talking about the scariness of it. And, you know, Travis played a sport before. I don't even know how old you are, Travis. You're like, I think you're like 12, you know, just kidding.
We don't need to go there.
Anyway, you know, I mean, like, I'm fortunate the time that I'm growing up, I was already a CAF athlete. CAF wasn't around, possibly was, I don't know. It wasn't at the level of expansion as it is currently. So the support that I mainly had was going onto the team was from CAF. You know, the high school coach had never really heard of cerebral palsy. Mainly the athletes who with disabilities that coaches across San Diego and I think across the country are the most familiar with is kids with intellectual disabilities. So kids in the special ed classroom who compete in the Special Olympics, but they're, you know, they're still trying to introduce them to the high school. So sometimes we'll have the kids who compete in the Special Olympics also practice with the high school team. So my coach really had no idea what I was talking about when I shook his hand and was like, hi, I'm Gracie. I have cerebral palsy. I don't kick very fast. And sometimes I need help getting on the blocks and that kind of stuff. And he was like, what? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Who are you? What is this thing? And I think, you know, I definitely recognized pretty early that it was going to be on me to have to explain. It was going to be on me to have to talk about it because San Diego is a large county and CIF manages 126 schools, and it's not necessarily their, I mean, we would like it to be their job and help out for them to direct the coaches and be like, this is what you need to do. But none of that was around at the time. So I had to communicate with my coaches that I can't do this at practice. I need to do something else. I'm very grateful for the coach that I have. He is a warm person. Once you get to know him, something that he's been recognized for in the San Diego area is because he's encouraged our entire team to cheer for me and the other kids with disabilities we've gotten on our swim team every single time they race. There's never been any sort of disconnect between the athletes with disabilities and the athletes and the able-bodied athletes. This is not the same story on other high school teams. I've heard from other kids we've had at the CAF high school programs that we've done where they haven't really been able to contact their coach and their coach hasn't been, you know, their coach isn't quite as willing. But that's what we have at CAF is we have this family so that when you go, you always are a part of a family. So I gotta say the support that I did receive at the beginning was more from me, from CAF, and that was where it stemmed from.
That's great. And I think you bring up a really important point about self-advocacy, right? Is that even with all the information that we can put out there, And, once everybody knows, that doesn't mean everybody's going to necessarily take to it, accept it, or be willing to be flexible with it. So it takes a lot of self-advocacy to get yourself to places like, a team, and to be able to let the coaches know what your rights are. And that's why this information that CAF has put together is so valuable, because it does kind of help with that. It means you're not alone in this attempt to join. I know that Patrick, Lawrence, and Eva have helped a lot of families with speaking to coaches and administrators. And I think that's the real benefit of this program is to make sure that people feel like they have assistance in being able to join their high school teams. Because once you're on the team, and Gracie, you can speak to this, is you're not any different than any other athlete on the team. You really are just another athlete. You just do things a little bit differently, but it doesn't take a lot of extra work to really coach an athlete with a disability. And I think that's the big takeaway that I think most coaches and administrators need to understand when accepting people with physical disabilities onto their teams. All right, so the next question I have for you is, what kind of challenges did you face as an adaptive athlete, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Okay, yeah, and I just, and as you mentioned, Travis, that was perfect. It's like, I feel like maybe I came across as it should be scary, but it shouldn't. Sport is a beautiful thing, and everyone has a right to do it, and has a right to be good at it, and to feel supported and encouraged and be a part of a team. And that is what this is all about, is that we are here with you doing it. And I want to encourage anyone who's listening to go and shake that hand of your coach and go be there and say hi and introduce yourself to your teammates, because they're your teammates. They're always going to be your teammates. And I think the challenges that have come up and always will come up or always seem less significant because of the team, because of your family that you have surrounding you. So something that I've struggled with was because I was diagnosed at 10. I lived the first 10 years of my life not understanding that all of the times I was in great pain doing like sports or trying to keep up with my brother or my dad or my friends wasn't my fault. It wasn't me complaining. It was me, like, my body telling me, you need to stop or else you're going to get injured. You need to stop because it's better for your health. Sorry, there's people clamoring in the background. The walls are thin here. So I think I struggle a lot with the mental health side and feeling like I deserve to be on the team, because I was like, like maybe I should be going faster because I don't quite have necessarily the most positive relationship with my disability sometimes. So I think I definitely struggle with that belongingness. And that's where I want to encourage everyone to remember that they have this family. So sometimes I would notice that I would just feel like, gosh, like I have to adapt this one part of practice and no one else is doing that with me. What does this mean? Am I taking up their time? Am I wasting anyone's time? Am I so on and so on and so on? And that's when I was like, no, I deserve to be here and I want to be here and I want to compete. And that's a challenge, especially as a teenager, that anxiety that you have. But you deserve to be there and you deserve to compete. I think something that's more universal is I'd go to pools and it would be like a massive amount of standing time in between races, or a massive amount of walking or going up and down stairs or trying to find certain places where I needed to be, and they didn't necessarily have a space for the para athletes that was accessible. And that was difficult, because that was again where I had to speak up, and instead of maybe like zoning in on my race, I had to be like, hey, I can't stand here for 20 minutes. I need to be sitting down. I need a chair, or else, I really won't be able to race. I think that was the biggest challenge that I faced in a lot of it, but it ended up, after communicating, change was made. And that was the biggest thing that I learned, was the second I spoke up and was like, hey, I need to do something different, they were like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. And that's normally the thing. They didn't think of it because they don't know. And that's what we have. That's all about the communication. So for me, it was definitely figuring out places to sit, because I have to sit down a lot. I can't walk very far. And then I noticed other things that were going on, which is that accessibility part, is making sure we have accessible fields, accessible pools, accessible courts for different sports that we have. I think, those are the main two that I felt was really just like my own personal like self-worth, and then showing my worth to others and being like, hey, I need to do this. I need to get this adoption, make this certain accessible thing. And I think it changes for every person too. And that's why we all have to kind of get over that first initial, like, hey, what will they think of me if I ask? Just ask. It's always better.
I actually love that you touched on that, because communication is the biggest thing when you are an adaptive athlete in anything that you do, any sport. I found that in triathlons when I was competing in triathlons, that people didn't know, if you've never been to a triathlon before, that you needed to have this space. And we would go to the race director, and once we told them what we needed, they were very accommodating. And I think it's the same thing that you're finding with swim and other sports, that people don't think about us first, but they will be accommodating if we can explain it to them the right way. Now, you have to be positive, you have to be cordial, but you have to let them know, here's a couple of things that I need to be able to successfully be able to compete in this event. And a lot of the times, if you give them a lot of warning ahead of time, email them before the race, don't tell them the day of, and give them an understanding of who you are, what your disability is, the reason you need this, and how they can help. Usually most people are willing to do that. So I love that you brought that up. I think that's an important thing for most people that goes along with the self-advocacy, is being outspoken and communicating well your needs. And most people are more than willing to help out with that. So thank you. I know that you're still on your swim team, and I know you've been swimming for a long time, but in your years of high school swimming, can you think of maybe one or two of your favorite times that you want to talk about?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, there's the biggest thing for me, and my favorite thing about high school swimming, specifically adaptive swimming, is watching other adaptive athletes swim for the first time and have every single person cheer for them. Like, I've seen, like, there was, for example, at my high school, Patrick Henry, I think we have like 7 kids with disabilities, and I think like 6 of them have intellectual disabilities, and some of them also have some like versions of like muscle paralysis and stuff like that. And they came to one of the meets, and it was just a regular meet. I think it was down here in San Diego. It was just some local high school that we normally compete against. And the announcer was like, and now we have an adaptive 50 free event, because we had 6 athletes and the pool holds 8 lanes. So our team was able to fill almost all 8 lanes. And then, like some of the other competitors were like, oh, what's that? And I was watching, we were all of my teammates have been trained how to help people get in the pool and get in and out of the water. So like everyone from Patrick County, which is my high school, like swarmed, helped these people on the blocks, raced, and the entire pool deck cheered. Like a solid 150 people, parents were just cheering. And I think one boy finished, and he just was so
I think we lost some of your sound there, Gracie. I don't know what happened. We can't hear you. It might be the internet connection, but I love your passion about that, and I love what you were.
those parents like, hey, you should bring your kid to
There we are. Can you hear us?
Yes. Did I cut out?
You cut out a little bit, but I think you were talking about how your team all knew how to kind of help people, and at that point, that's when we lost you. So go from there.
Okay, sorry. Our whole team was helping him onto the blocks, and the announcer sends them off to race, and they finish. I mean, the whole pool deck is like losing it, just like screaming and cheering and encouraging. Some of the kids don't quite know to like go back to the other side, so we're like encouraging to come back to the other side. Other ones have finished like 30 seconds ahead. People are just like going bananas over it. And couple of the kids start to finish, and they just start crying out of like joy. Like they just have these like massive smiles on their faces, and their parents are just like running over, and they're just like hugging their kids, because their kids have never really been as accepted at the school as they had in that moment. And it was, to me, like, it'll just be a moment that's like forever frozen in my mind as the perfect example of what team means, and what empowering means, and what community means. And it's exactly what adaptive high school sports is all about. It's about just empowering that community. And that's my favorite part, is we've had that at pretty much every meet now. Since that first meet, everyone's just like, wow, oh my God, I never knew that there was para sports. Didn't know that this was a thing. And it like blows their mind. And for all of us that are in the community, we're like, yeah, like, come out more. You got to come see these things. But my favorite part is to watch other people do it.
No, I love that. And I think that most people really don't understand how having an adaptive athlete on the team can really bring the team together. It's a lot of camaraderie that's involved in that. And I love that that's one of your favorite examples and moments. All right, we got 2 more questions left, and I want to ask you a little bit about CIF before we get to the end here. I think we have about 10 minutes left before we're at an hour. First, one of the last 2. How have sports affected your life, specifically in representing your high school team?
Okay, I'll be quick. I talk a lot, so I think that's why we're going over. I think it helped a lot with my mental health. Sport and high school sport taught me to believe in myself and that I'm supposed to be here and I can be here and I want to do well and I want to win. And it gave me a sense of like this is where I want to thrive. And it gave me a sense of like kind of purpose. Like high school adaptive sports kind of became the thing that I have done over the 4 years that I'm not done with high school yet, but it's been the thing that I do when I meet someone. I talk about high school adaptive sports and see who we can bring into the program. So it's become my passion and the thing I care about most, and the thing that I like to define as who I am as a high school adaptive athlete. It's the thing I am the most proud of, and I'm just absolutely thrilled to have been a part of it, and I'm lucky that first instance back in 7th grade I was introduced to it. And I'm really grateful for how CAF is getting involved in expanding the programs, hopefully across the country. So swim has become for me more than just a sport. It's become a community and the thing that I care about.
I love that. All right, last one. What kind of advice would you have for someone who wants to join their high school sports team?
I think I've talked about this, but talk, share, communicate. Even if you don't feel comfortable going to the coach themselves, if you could communicate with your parent who could then send an email, communicate with a friend who maybe would be more comfortable walking with you to the coach's office, or pushing your wheelchair, or helping you out, or guiding you, or being with you as you go and have that first introduction. I think that's the best advice I can give, is that we're all here cheering for you when you say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, I want to join your team." We're all with you. Like, we are there behind you, giving like money, like, "Yeah, go, you got it." That's what we're here for. Once you just have that first talk, it'll immediately, like, everyone in this world is ultimately, we want to help each other. And you gotta believe that there's people out there who want to help you. And us here, we're cheering for you and we want to help you.
Love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. You've been awesome. I think one last thing before we go, I would love for you to share a little bit about your experience working at the CIF office. Not a lot of people get a chance to do an internship like that. And I think the value in having you as an adaptive athlete be in that office to speak with the people that are implementing the change directly is so important to what we're trying to do in the adaptive sports movement. I'd just love to know what it was like for you to be able to do that and kind of what the experience was.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. It was very cool. The high school that I go to, very lucky that it has this opportunity, but 2 times a week we go to internships. And I chose to go ahead I wanted to go to CIF because after my freshman year, I went to Patrick Henry High School, which is the team that I swim for, and I didn't really like the environment at the school, so I was looking for another school to go to, and I ultimately picked the school that I go to now with the internships because they have internships. And because CIF reached out to me and they're like, "Do you want to come intern? And will you tell us how do we make adaptive sports get bigger? Like, how do we do this? And how do we do it from an athlete's perspective? How do we reach out to you?" And so I think that was kind of the point for me when I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to go help other people do what I just did. So being an intern at CIF was difficult because there was I've never had that level of responsibility. And I think also because I felt a responsibility to my community to make it bigger and to spread high school adaptive sports. But I think I never really necessarily felt like it wasn't something we couldn't do because the programs were kind of already in place. And then on top of it, Eva had just been hired, and I knew that CIF was trying to get the ball rolling on this. And I was like, I can be that conduit between the two of them. Like, I have Patrick's phone number. Sorry, Patrick, for all the texts. I can contact them. Like, we just need to talk to them. So it was, I think for me, I sometimes was like, am I supposed to be in this room? Like, am I in here? And I would just kind of start opening doors and being like, can I come to this meeting and just start talking to coaches? And I for sure met my fair share of people who were like, para-athletes. You know, I met some people who I definitely had some opinions about, because I was like, how dare you say that about my community? And I'll just like go on my little like Gracie talking rant and be like, no. Let me send you all these articles, share with everything I need to share with you. I think I felt very like boss lady changing the world kind of, even though I was like 15 and just like sending an email. But it was a really cool experience to see change happen and watch people like listening to my voice and like acting on it, and to just see how much Eva cared and loved for this program. Like, she had just moved here and was like just like full on like, this is going and this is happening, and I was like, oh my god, this is happening, like this is working. And she's just done amazing, and I'm so excited for all the things that are happening at CAF. So it was very cool, and I'm very glad that I got the chance to be a part of it at the beginning stages.
That's awesome. I'm going to bring Eva up and get everybody to see all of our faces here. So you're all on the screen now. We have got a few minutes left here. So here's one of the things I would say from that last, question in your response. I would encourage any of the, high school aged athletes in their state, in their region of their state, to reach out to their high school sports governing body. In case anybody doesn't understand the difference between CIF and CAF. CIF is the California Interscholastic Federation, and they oversee all sports within the state. And then CAF is obviously Challenge Athletes Foundation. But each state has their version of CIF. And I would highly encourage you as an adaptive athlete to go out, be an influence to your regional office, maybe even your state office, and try to get them to understand more about adaptive sports, because as people learn, they become less fearful of the unknown and they are more accepting of what we do. That being said, right before we finish, I want Eva to tell everybody where they can go to reach out to us. I know you posted in the chat a few times in the Q&A, but if they need to reach out to us for help or questions on high school adaptive sports, where would they contact us?
Of course. Just to add real quick to what you just said, for your state association, reaching out to them, obviously, so important. If your state association hasn't really caught on to this movement yet, you can use other state associations as an example. So, California is a great example. We've had a ton of support so far in the last couple of years here. I can provide you with documents and resources that California uses and take them to your state association and say, hey, this is what other people are doing. You can build off of that. So just tiny little note there, but please reach out if you have any questions, comments, concerns. I'm always available via email or phone call. You can reach me at highschoolsports@challengedathletes.org. So happy to schedule a time to chat one-on-one with anyone who may be having some questions or maybe be facing some barriers. We are here to support you through this whole process, regardless of where you live, regardless of your ability level. We are here to support you.
Awesome. And to add on to that, make sure if you want any of the resources that we have available, challengeathletes.org/HS Adaptive Sports. Okay, and that's where you can find out all the amazing resources. Looks like we are at time, and I want to thank Eva and Gracie for being a part of tonight, for making this such a wonderful conversation. I want to thank the people that have been a big part of this sports program, this high school adaptive sports program, the Kenneth Whalen Family Foundation, LA84 Foundation, and Pitch Johnson. They've been a huge part of being able to give us the funds to be able to make sure this happens. I do want to do a quick plug for our 2020 CAF Community Challenge presented by Vega. If you haven't joined, you've got a few days left. We've got a big fundraiser we're trying to do to make sure we can give our 2021 grants, which is also our high school adaptive sports grants. So make sure you join in, put in the miles, do the fundraising. It's over on Sunday, but if you have a few days left to join, and don't forget to join our Celebration of Abilities Awards Night on Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can check out our Facebook page. It's going to be live. It's virtual for the first time, and it's going to be amazing. So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. You guys have all been great, and I hope everybody here has learned something and is able to go out and feel confident about joining their high school adaptive sports team, and look forward to speaking to everybody soon. All right, have a great one. Bye, everybody.